TCU's found a victory, finally, and now they're trying to end the season on a 2-game winning streak.
And the Bearcats desperately need to find theirs before the regular season ends.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Horned Frogs and Locked On Bearcats, as we provide you with the crossover you need on Black Friday. After Thanksgiving, we are not saving you any money, but we are saving your day. It is me, Darian Gray, the mouth of the South, here with Jeff Carr of Locked On Bearcats to break down everything you need around this game between TCU and Cincinnati. We're going to close out with predictions. Segment 2, a couple of matchups that we're looking for, because these have two tackling machines going against each other. But I start off with a question that I think not only TCU fans are wondering, but pretty much everybody other than Cincinnati fans are curious. What the heck happened to the Bearcats? Because they're on a 3-game skid when they were in the position to possibly make the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, they really started off the year in a strange way where they lost a national game to Nebraska where it kind of felt like they had a lot of different chances to win, and so they faded into obscurity. And then they won 7 games in a row, and everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we ought to pay attention. And Utah, Arizona, and BYU have all happened. And so we are now facing the reality of finishing a season with a 4-game losing streak where they finished last season with a 5-game losing streak. The good news is they're bowl eligible, but the Bearcats have really just limped through these last 3 games. It's not necessarily that they've played horrible. It's that they've had unforced errors and they've not taken advantage of opportunities when they're presented to them. Like they've made turnovers here and there, or they've forced turnovers here and there, but they've not scored off of them. And then conversely, they've been giving away the ball quite a bit. In the last game against BYU, you had 3 missed field goals from a guy that hadn't missed one in like 2 years. And then in Steven Rusnak. And then you had a couple of key turnovers there in the red zone that just it just dooms you against most teams, but much less a team as good as BYU. Just really sort of hit home everything that's been going wrong with this team, that it just can't get out of its own way.
I didn't know if I was listening to myself back or if I was listening to you. It sounds like a lot of things that I've said about TCU over the year. And you know, I'll keep from some of the sarcastic jokes about TCU because they did come out with a victory. So I guess that's what they've earned. They've earned for me to not come in and do self-deprecating humor for a day. Fine, I'll do that. But it's interesting. One thing that stuck out to me is you mentioned the missing of field goals. In the lack of that over the last couple of years, that's how I felt watching Houston's kicker miss those field goals. He had one from 48 that he just didn't have enough leg on. I don't remember the last time I seen a kicker not have leg on a 48-yard field goal. Like, you know, it's rare. It's just not what you see in football these days. And it's even more rare because he had made a 49-yard field goal. So that was super strange to me. And then he missed a 30-yard field goal. So it almost made me feel like the football guys were with TCU on Saturday. I want to get back to something you said, though. That 7-game winning streak, the 3-game losing streak right now. Was there anything different? You said they're not playing overly poorly, but is there anything different that you see, whether it's health, whether it's key players just not playing as well? I would assume there has to be some sort of shift that goes from 7 in a row one way to 3 in a row a different way.
There's been some drops, and I think that the receiving core throughout the pass catchers as a whole, including Joe Royer, the tight end, had been really good through the 7-game winning streak. But there's been some drops by some key pass catchers. And then also Joe Royer just does not seem to be there in the passing game. Like, I only think he got like just 2 or 3 targets on Saturday night against BYU. There's a statistic, and he actually caught 2 passes against BYU, but up until that point, in the 3 total losses that the Bearcats had all year, he had 1 catch in each of those games. So it was like, target Joe Royer, win the football game. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just defenses are scheming it well, they're taking him away from Brendan Sorsby and the ability to throw to him. And then I think that's probably the other part of it is a little bit of, lack of execution on the offensive side, but then definitely opposing defenses have figured out when you pressure Brendan Sorsby with blitzes and when you play man coverage, you can really not necessarily completely silence him, but you can slow him down a lot. And when the Bearcats can't throw, then you can really focus in on that run game, which they love to be balanced, but they have been very inconsistent where they were super efficient early on in the season. That efficiency has sort of disappeared here recently. They had a couple of home run carries from Tawi Walker and some nice plays. Evan Pryor returned last week against BYU and made some nice plays, but ultimately, if they aren't getting the 30, 40, 50-yard carry, that running game is getting 2, 3 yards at most on a consistent basis, and they're playing from behind the sticks.
Now, last thing I'm curious about, because everybody wants to talk about trajectory of programs. It's a huge thing. It's college football, right? Like, I don't want to dismiss it. But you guys are on a 3-game losing streak, potentially a 4, and you're already bowl eligible. There could be a 5-game losing streak in your future, and there is a 5-game losing streak, as you mentioned, in the past. Are we in hot seat conversations? Have those conversations already began? Are we in firing conversations?
It's interesting because at the beginning of the season, I would have said yes. I think Scott Satterfield might have coached his way out of it. But ironically, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about, is he getting an extension rather than is he on the hot seat? And now it's kind of like, all right, just finish the year and then we'll see what the future holds. It's tough because I think that there have been so many fans that have decided that they know who Scott Satterfield is before this season began. And then during the 7-game win streak, everybody was kind of going, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, sure. But nobody really got really excited about him. And now that they've gone through another losing streak, everybody's back to where they were in August. So I think that it's more of a fan sentiment. I think that based on the goals of what you would have said preseason, get to the bowl, maybe get a few more wins past bowl eligible, and we'll have a successful year, especially if they're able to win one of these last 2 games between TCU or the bowl game. I think most people will realize that this season has been fine. It's been a step. It wasn't the leap that we thought was going to happen, but it's been a step in the right direction where these first couple of years of Scott Satterfield's tenure, they were pretty stagnant, if not falling back a little bit. So I think that ultimately the job is all right if he doesn't lose the next 2. Even if he does lose the next 2, I think the job's all right for him for another year. But certainly you want to go out with a little bit more momentum than you're seeing right now.
Coaching your way out of the hot seat and then back onto the hot seat in the matter of a single season would be insane, by the way. Let's just that
impressive. That's for sure.
It's extremely impressive.
Some way.
But you said something I thought was interesting, where if you reflect back to where Cincinnati was before the season and told fans you would get this type of year, they would be satisfied. I'm a big proponent of expectations changing as seasons go on.
That's fair.
Is that fair to fans? So, okay, coming in, you get bowl eligible, maybe get a game or 2 above bowl eligible, and you're happy. But then you go on a 7-game winning streak. I think it's fair to say expectations change. I think it's fair to say that what I thought was acceptable at the beginning of the year probably, first off, wouldn't have looked like this, right? Like, it wouldn't have looked like lose a game, win 7 in a row, lose, let's say 4. Let's say you close out on a 4-game losing streak on the regular season. I think it's fair to still be critical from a fan standpoint. They don't make no decisions. I always say that. I don't make a decision. Fans don't make a decision. But we do have the ability to talk about it in the sense of what we think should happen if we were in those chairs. I think it's kind of fair for fans to be upset again, despite the final record looking similar, if not exceeding what preseason expectations were.
I would definitely agree with you. And I think that the reason that my thought process went that way is because I'm a Cincinnati sports fan and I know how these things go. And like Bengals, Reds, even FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati was in the semifinal of the MLS against Miami and just got boat raced on Sunday night. It's been a rough weekend, man. I'm going to tell you that. But I feel like it's something that's been ingrained in us where it's just like, there's a way that I can feel good about this. And so I'm going to look for that. But I'm with you. If anybody is not doing that, if there's somebody that's like on the thought process of like, no, I'm not that happy about this, I don't begrudge that at all.
No, 1,000%. Let's get into a little bit of the matchups, because TCU, they were feeling exactly like you were feeling just a week ago, and some of them are still feeling that way. Let's get into the matchups and how TCU can kind of dispel some of the negativity from the fan base that they have honestly earned, if we're going to be honest. But if they can dispel some of that as we continue with this Locked On crossover. Today's episode is brought to you by Omaha. I don't know how to work this camera. Obviously, I don't, but we're going to keep rolling because Omaha, we believe in audibles and never audible on Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you know the perfect gift. I've been doing Omaha since 2023, maybe 2022, and Omaha Steaks make it all too simple. So whether you're treating yourself or maybe you're sending something memorable to a family member, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. I've given Omaha Steaks before to someone whose birthday was in January, and they say, hey, thank you for the Christmas and birthday gift. I didn't even need to come back, but I'm a good guy, so of course I came back with another gift. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off of select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use the promo code college at checkout. That's a lot of money we saving. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code college. Terms apply. See site for details. Cincinnati, TCU, two teams not feeling great about their program. I think that a win from TCU could really, especially if it's a comfortable win, especially if it's an impressive win, that could change how fans look at the Horned Frogs. And one of the matchups that I'm looking for to really change that is the ability to get pressure. You talked about people knowing if you get pressure on Sorsby, things change. But you haven't allowed a lot of sacks. You haven't allowed, it's only 4. I think that's best in the conference right now. While TCU is, probably in that third region. If you break it down into fourths, they're probably in that third region with sacks. If you can heat up Sorsby, if TCU can heat up Sorsby, I think it'll be pivotal in taking them to a victory.
Yeah, the pressure that has been posed from both from all three of Utah, Arizona, BYU, hasn't necessarily come through in the sack category. It's been more so in forcing him out of his progressions, because he is a progression guy. He will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you let him. And he has had moments like that this year where you can watch him. You can watch him go through the field. He's a very smart quarterback, understands the plays and the routes and all that other stuff, like intuitively, but to a point that if you flush him out of his thought process, then he starts to make some rough decisions. He's made 2 throws, one each of these last 2 games, to Cyrus Allen, where there was a guy that was covering him over the top, and there was a guy that was covering him underneath, and there was absolutely no way you were completing that pass. But you could tell that it was because he felt the pressure closing in a little bit. And so he rushed to throw, pick both times. And he's been a guy that earlier on, was completely not unfazable, but efficient as heck, lack of a better term, because he was really good at limiting the turnover-worthy throws. And here lately, he has not been that guy. And I think that's been the idea, is get guys close enough to let him feel the walls coming in and not necessarily breaking the dam, as it were. But you've got guys right there. There's been blocks at the line of scrimmage. Utah did a really good job of that with their defensive line. And then BYU was just able to make sure that guys were in the right place at the right time, coverage-wise, where you didn't get yak if guys got catches at all, and then they were able to force turnovers when they needed to.
Now, that's important. I think a lot of times we only look at sacks because, especially if you don't have like a PFF or something, it can be hard to even find the pressure numbers for college. I think they're a little bit more available in the NFL. I feel like they're a little bit more talked about in the NFL. But if you're talking about college, it's typically hard to see the pressures. But pressures matter when they force bad plays. So I'll be interested. I'll be watching Devin Deal right? Like in general, I'm looking at the pass rush, but Devin Deal is a player who he's number 11. He moves around the football field. He's very impactful at rushing the passer. I think that Caleb Elarms-Orr is another guy who's extremely. He doesn't rush the passer all the time. He only had 3 pass rush snaps last game. He's an off-ball backer, but he's a tackling machine. And when he does rush the passer, he's typically pretty effective. Which brings me to my second one before I get to, matchups that you're looking forward to. But Caleb Elarms-Orr versus Jake Golday. He, Elarms-Orr, and Jacob Rodriguez are the only 3 linebackers in the Big 12 that have 100 tackles. Now, obviously, Elarms-Orr, he's been I think he's had 315 tackle games. So he's a tackling machine. But these 2 games or these 2 players against each other in this game are going to be something that I watch just because it may not sway how the game goes. It may not be the deciding factor. They're off-ball linebackers. A lot of times those aren't the most impactful players on the field, but they may be the most visible. And they may tell you how the game is going. If Elarms-Orr is getting sacks or getting tackles for a loss or getting 1-yard stops, then TCU's defense is probably doing pretty well. If Golday is doing that, Cincinnati's defense is probably doing pretty well. So as opposed to a 7-yard down the field tackle, I think it may tell you a lot, but I believe we see a lot from these 2 players.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when you were talking about Devin Deal and him being number 11, kind of keeping an eye on him. Jake Golday, number 11. So you watch number 11 on both sides of the defense. It's going to be a lot of fun. And honestly, Joe Royer on offense when it comes to the Bearcats, number 11 as well. Something about the number 11. Everybody wears that number. I love it. But Jake Golday is going to be a NFL stud. Dude is huge. Dude can move. He made a lot of great plays this past week against BYU, whether it be tackles in the backfield or there was a specific pass breakup that he had in the red zone where if he'd have tipped it just like a foot this way, it would have been a pick, but it was behind the guy and he wasn't able to get to it. But he's just so disruptive on every play that he is in. He usually plays just about every down, and they can kind of mix it up a little bit. He can be your James Harrison and just rush straight at the quarterback on some plays, and then he can be, your Brian Urlacher. He's hanging out in the back, hanging out in that second level, making sure that nothing is getting past him. I've really been impressed by him all year. Him and Christian Harrison are really the 2 guys on this team that I look at and say, all right, y'all are holding it down, because the rest of this defense is a little rough around the edges. There's definitely been some moments where they need to step up and they haven't done that, but it's because they're going to opposite sides of the fields from where Christian Harrison and from where Jake Golday are. This coverage can really be suspect sometimes. And I know that, TCU boasts some of the best passing that the conference has seen all year long. That's going to be a very big change of pace from their game plan against BYU, where BYU just wanted to run it down your throat all day. Now you have to go back to defending the pass, making sure, you're not getting beat over the top. There's been a lot of times this year, man, where coverages have just been pass interference or bust, it feels like. And I cringe to think about some different plays that I can close my eyes and see guys that are just got their head turned from the ball, easy pass interference, and it was like 3rd and 15. Here we go. So
here we go. I've seen this story before. All right, Jeff. I've done a lot of yapping. I've done a lot of questioning. Do you have any matchups that you are looking forward to from this game?
It's got to be the offensive line. The offensive line has been bludgeoned these last couple of weeks, and they were a squad that looked like the best in the conference, and they kind of got beat up a little bit. There's been some moments in these 3-game losing streaks where it's like, okay, you're not necessarily bad, but you're definitely not as good as we had thought. Where the push that they had during that 7-game winning streak had just disappeared, because they were averaging a lot, probably 4 and 5 yards a carry at that point. Now it feels like it's down to 2 and 3 yards a carry, which is not going to get the job done. And then you got to make throws at the right times and stuff like that just to catch up with the sticks. But it all starts up front. And it kind of feels like these last 3 losses have been out physical. Can they get that back in this game? That's really what I'm looking for the most, because if that works, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, that tends to happen with the offensive line. They tend to be the engine, the underrated engine of the team. Really, I remember I was sitting down. This was in my Locked On HBCU time. I was sitting down with the North Carolina Central head coach, and I spoke about how the running back was the engine. And he stopped me quick to correct me in the sense of, nah, those guys up front are our engine. And the truth is, if your running back is your engine, most times your offensive line is the true engine. Sometimes it's not as accurate with the offensive line. I mean, who am I talking to? Talking to a guy who follows the Bengals. Of course, you know that a passing attack doesn't mean your offensive line.
You just get the ball out fast, and it kind of covers up a lot of things.
Drew used to get the ball out fast with New Orleans. He used to boom, boom. Drew leaves. Oh, these guys aren't that good. Wait a minute. There's some struggles here. You know, a great quarterback will cover up a lot of deficiencies. But when you look at the running game, nah, if your running back is the engine of your offense, your offensive line is pretty good. I don't think that those two can coexist unless you're Barry Sanders. That's like the only exception I can really think of. Like, you know, so I think that that's fair. Any other matchups that you look forward to before we get into these predictions?
The last one, and this is a singular player one, but it's got to be, I mentioned him already, it's got to be Joe Royer. Like, dude's got to get going. And I don't know if it's a him thing. I don't know if it's a Sorsby thing. I don't know if there's a disconnect in their like on-field chemistry, but they've got to repair that because these last 3 weeks it's been gone. And I tried to watch him at different points at the senior day game last week and just see, like, is he being covered? What is it? And it certainly seems as though most teams are committing either a linebacker and a safety or a corner and a linebacker or something like that, just making sure that they've got eyes on number 11, making sure he doesn't beat them and forcing anybody else to do it. And nobody else has stepped up. So Joe Royer's got to get back to doing what he's done because he was a guy that was on a very high, rising trajectory when it comes to getting into the draft and getting some eyes on him and stuff. I don't know if that like got into his head or what, but it just doesn't seem like he's been playing his game these last 3 weeks.
Well, they had a pretty good tight end at Houston, and they didn't do much. So fingers crossed that both teams' trends continue. I know you probably wish that it's the other way, but I will have my fingers crossed that it goes in advantage of TCU. I promised I would have better technological skills. So let's see if that's true as we push forward and get into our predictions in this Locked On crossover between the Bearcats and the Horned Frogs.
When it comes to Saturday's game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it's a nice little time for both teams, FanDuel is going to be the place to go. And whether you're looking at all of the games on the slate, because FanDuel's got every single college football game out there, maybe you're looking at some college basketball, FanDuel has you covered. And for this game specifically, TCU's favored right now, 4.5 they're laying against the Bearcats on Saturday afternoon. Over under at 58.5. Bearcats just got playing an under game. And I kind of feel like it's all because it was about the run game for BYU. The fact that TCU going to throw the ball, UC wants to throw the ball, there's going to be an over hit in this one. I feel good about saying that. Over 58.5 over on FanDuel. Odds on that -110. That's the big right now. And check out FanDuel, and if you're a new user, place a $5 wager. And you get $300 if your $5 wager wins. No odds are that good, no matter what you do. So find yourself a good bet and place that $5 wager for your first win and see that bankroll increase. Download FanDuel today.
This is a game that I think TCU is going to pull out. I do. And I probably wouldn't have felt that way a month ago. This was the toughest stretch. This is still, in my opinion, the toughest stretch on TCU's schedule. You play Iowa State, you lose that game because that's a team that is a little bit more talented than you think. And I also think TCU shot themselves in the foot in that game. Then you play BYU, and that's BYU. I think that speaks for itself. You beat Houston, so that's a good win, and that was a solid victory. And now you play Cincinnati, who kind of similar to Iowa State. It's a beginning and ending, a team that has tapered off from what they once were, but you still feel like they're dangerous. I still think that TCU pulls this game out by, I'm going to say 7. I'm going to say a touchdown, and I'm going to say it involves Cincinnati trying to play catch up towards the end. So they'll have a decent lead, and then Cincinnati may put a touchdown, maybe even 10 points. I think 10 points is a little dramatic for my point spread, but they may put a touchdown on the board that gets you within 7 points, and then TCU closes it out on defense. If you're looking at a closer on this team, it's the defense. The offense hasn't really done a great job at that. I thought they did better last week where they really dripped the clock. But as far as finishing and closing out games, I feel like the defense has been the side of the team that has done that the best. So my prediction is kind of similar to Baylor, if you're a Horned Frogs fan, where Baylor started making a surge late, but it ended up being too late, too little, too late, and you had a big play by the defense that closed it out. I'm not going to say it happens exactly like that, but it does happen similar in a TCU victory.
I would really like to disagree with you, but I had to weave a pretzel as to why I actually agree with you, because I think that the Bearcats lost this game last week. I thought that if they beat BYU, they would build the momentum they need to go on the road in TCU and win. I just don't buy it. Like, I would love to say that I am wrong, but there's a very specific stat that I've not used yet that has me wondering a little bit. In the Scott Satterfield era, the Bearcats are 1-10 in the month of November.
Oh,
and I would love to say that means that they're due, but not on the road. Like, I thought that if they were going to stop the skid, it was going to be on Senior Day, but they weren't able to do that, and it's constantly because they get in their own way. And I would love for them to fix all of that, but to say the only reason that I could back that up is hope. So I'm afraid I got to agree with you. I think that TCU wins. I think they cover. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be a fun game. I really want to see this be better than this, but I've got TCU winning 34-27. And I just think that there's enough mistakes by this Bearcats team that hasn't gotten rid of the mistakes yet. And the fact that you ain't got rid of the mistakes now, that makes it seem as though you're just not going to get rid of the mistakes.
That's fair.
And so can you overcome that? I would have felt better about saying that if it were at home. They're on the road. I think they're going to end up falling in this one, which is going to sting because you're going to go into the bowl game with negative momentum, whatever that bowl is. It might be the Pop-Tart Bowl. It might be the, whatever bowl, the
trucker hat bowl,
swing line stapler bowl or something. I don't know. I think that ultimately they've just got to figure out what it is that is in their own way. Because right now, I don't say that like I was overly impressed by Bear Bachmeier. And I know that Noah Fafita had a really great PFF grade after his win, after Arizona's win over UC, but I wasn't that impressed with him either. I just think that overall it's been plays that UC just hasn't made. And so until they make those plays, it's hard for me to say that they're going to do anything else.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Since we're pulling out stats that we have, and I'm going to close out with this one as we bump up against the 30-minute mark. They allowed over 200 yards to LJ Martin. Now, does TCU
I was impressed by
LJ
him.
Martin? Yeah, no, he's good, huh? That guy, that boy good. Like they said, they're coming in America. But look, TCU doesn't have an LJ Martin. They don't. But I can wonder if TCU, who figured out the ability to run the football, which they have done throughout the year, but I don't think they've ever done it in back-to-back games. Can they get another 100-yard rusher? Can they do that? They did it last week, Jeremy Payne. Can they do it again? I think that is the stat. I'm not looking for 200, right? Like if that happens.
You get 200, they're going to like double cover.
Yeah. You get 200 yards, you might be looking for a new head coach, right? Like it's just embarrassing. And 200 yards back-to-back, especially to a team in TCU that is at the bottom of the barrel in rushing yards, that's just not a strong suit of theirs. I think that would really open up a new conversation around that Cincinnati defense. I don't expect that, but can you get a 100-yard rusher? So that is my stats that I'm going to bring in because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put this in, but let's throw it in at the end. So I appreciate you, Jeff, coming on. This was a lot of fun. Good luck on your bowl game. Won't wish you luck on the last game, but good luck on your bowl game.
Hey, you as well, Darian. We'll see you in basketball.
Yes. And that should be a little bit more favorable. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time you hear us, take care, stay blessed. Peace.